Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Flight Path. We are so excited you're here. I am your host, David, CEO and co-founder here at Tern, joined as always by our head of product, Molly, and our head of design, Brad. And we have a lot to cover. If this is your first time tuning in, every week we are shipping improvements and updates and new things to the Tern product based on your feedback. And this is the podcast where we cover all the updates. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in like we always do with a little bit of a week in review, kind of checking in on how people are doing. I will say though, if you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button, click that like button. We've got a new head of marketing now, Grace. She's really honest about the analytics. And so, we need to make sure that we kind of tell people that, that people watch this. So go ahead and click those buttons for us. You'll do us a favor. With that, let's jump in. Molly, let's start with you. How was your week?
I feel like I say this every week. It was a really good week and there's just so much going on. So it was also very chaotic. I think probably the highlight for me is getting my hands on another mobile app upgrade and being able to play around with it. So this time we're tackling making the itinerary look a lot more like polished and beautiful and photo centric from the client mobile app. So it's not out yet, but just scrolling around and seeing how much better it feels was really exciting.
Oh wow! Yeah, talk about a teaser for maybe next week. We'll have some
Yeah,
pretty big updates there.
definitely next week.
So again, if you subscribe, you'll get notified of the update, and then we'll be able to tell you all about the mobile updates. So that was a perfect little transition. And Brad, it looks like you're coming to us from a murder shed here, I think. How has your week been?
My week has been great. For clarification, I'm up in Maine, and Jack and I are staying with his parents. They have a tiny little cabin, and in order for us to both have spaces to work from home, one of us works from the lovely shed. You can like spot some things in the background if you're bored during the podcast. And yeah, my week's been great. I like I said, it's just like being it up here, kind of in the woods and by the ocean, is just like a lovely complement to some of the chaos of just all the stuff we're doing at work. So it's been nice to have some more just like relaxing times in addition just to just everything we have going on. Work highlights for me this week. I feel like I don't know, we talked about this a bit in the past, but we're really digging into how we can better support agencies who operate as merchants within Turn. And like we've talked about things like trip funds and group funds and all this stuff. But I feel like I'm starting to really wrap my head around it all. We've been talking to a bunch of agencies, interviewing them, just learning about how this is different than people who operate more on a commission basis. And yeah, it's been, I don't know, just been really fun. I feel like I'm like leveling up my knowledge of the industry a lot recently. So it's been cool.
And Brad, I'm very impressed by your ability to tune out that fly that's swarming around your head because
You can see that.
spotting it and you're keeping a very cool demeanor. So props to you.
The real question is, is the box fan still just off camera blowing the flies off, or did you have to take that away for the podcast audio? There it is. Okay, perfect. We're getting the full visual here. It is remarkable though. Brad is in rural Maine, and I'm also up north in Michigan at my in-laws cottage, which is like not exactly a metropolis, but it's probably less rural than I think where Brad is. And somehow Brad has better internet today than I do, which is like kind of wild. But just
yeah, to
like
be fair, you have to take an hour ferry to get to this island that I'm on. So it's like there's very few people here, but apparently there's really great internet. Not sure how they got it, but we're glad it exists.
And it's like not even Starlink. It's like just actually like hardwired internet. It's just wild. So the modern marvels of being able to work truly from anywhere these days. Week was really good on my side too. I think we mentioned last week we had a board meeting. This is not my real background, by the way, but I am up north on the lake in Michigan, which is always like a bit of a happy place. We got here last night, doing a little kind of like family time, which is always good to kind of recharge. From a work perspective, the board meeting was really good. And for context, like I think this is one of the really neat things on the podcast before. We've talked about being, kind of venture backed as a part of taking on venture capital. Like what the VCs will say is like, we want a board seat. And so it kind of forces this level of governance that a lot of companies who are otherwise our stage, maybe they're like privately funded or they're bootstrapped, like wouldn't have the rigor of a board. And it's actually one of the coolest resources because the board's not dictating how we operate. They're definitely not prescribing what we need to do. But these are people that spend their days just looking at the best startups in the world. They look at all these different technologies. Like every single day, they're thinking about, markets and business and like strategies for like better showing up to your customers, like what the trends are. And so you having this time every quarter where you can kind of come together and like say like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we're learning, and like have them push a little bit on like, hey, here are actually best practices that we're seeing from these dozen other companies that we've talked to over the past like quarter. So it was really fun. We had, kind of a broader group here. Brad and Molly was there. And it's just such a fun, rich discussion around the future of Tern, how we think about investing in agencies and advisors, and the continue to push, continues to be for the board. Like we have to build the absolute best product for all of you. And so feeling energized, there's always kind of, I think like, questions and things that we're like, okay, like, should we be investing in this or that? And like, how do we think about that? And so it's, kind of head is spinning a little bit, but that was really fun. And I think the other highlight for me, and Brad, I think we'll actually talk about an example of where this is manifesting, but it's just such a fun time to be building a technology company right now. I mean, we get to do it in the travel industry, which I think is one of the best industries in the world. But like, you look at some of the tooling that's coming out with artificial intelligence that's going to let us continue to move even faster. And I feel like over the past couple of weeks, the team has taken this to an extreme. Brad creating like using design AI to create fully interactive mockups, like engineers thinking about like how can I push code and updates faster. Like we're sort of in this like learning messy period right now, but it just gives me so much confidence that like you think we're responsive now, like these tools are going to let us really supercharge the way that we show up for you, and not only build faster, but also think about how do we bring that to life for you and have the same types of tools that can supercharge you. So I'm like ending the week on just such a high, a tired high, I would say, but like it is just such a fun time to be doing this. So I will conclude my monologue with one more exciting update, which is we are kicking off a brand new thing in Tern, which is our summer boot camp. One of the things that we've heard from you over and over again is that training and education around how to use this product is incredibly important. It's one of the reasons that the three of us do this podcast every single week. And we've hired Karina, who's actually now our training and education lead. And one of the first things that Karina's doing is actually working with Ben on our support team to do this summer boot camp. 8 sessions over 3 weeks, and it's going to go through all the fundamentals of Tern. Even if you've been using Tern for a while, I bet you learn a lot. If you're new to Tern, if you're trialing, this is going to be such a helpful set of resources for you. So definitely check that out. You can go to our website. In the product, we have a little banner right now, and you can register for those sessions. There's definitely demand. We've been blown away by how many of you have signed up in the first like 48 hours. It's actually been truly shocking and really exciting. So stay tuned for a lot more of this. You're going to see it, just training and education at Tern get better and better and better. So that was a lot of me talking. I'm excited to move on to the next section where I get to take a little bit of a break about what we shipped this week. Again, I think Tern is the only platform, certainly in the travel industry, that every single week is shipping updates for you based on your feedback. And Molly's going to kick us off with a set of, I think, pretty exciting updates.
Yeah, so if you've been following along, one of our like quests this quarter has been trying to minimize clicks, kill clicks, and also make the product just feel a little more intuitive and easier to use, especially for new users. And so we kind of concluded a set of updates that we call like empty states, which really just means when you sign up for Tern or you first take an action in Tern, try to make it just feel more intuitive of like, what is this page? And what is the first thing I should really do or think about when I land on this page? So a good example is the global email inbox. Previously, when someone would like click the little emails tab in their top navigation, they would land on it and there was literally no action that they could take. Like they couldn't start a new email from there, didn't really know what it was, right? And so now there's like a nice little helpful empty state that says, hey, you can go right to settings to connect your inbox to start seeing emails here. And it has a nice little hyperlink. Or you can like go to one of your trips or contacts to start a new email. And so we did that with a number of different tabs to make sure, again, just when people first visit those things, it feels intuitive on what you should really do first. And then like a particular highlight within that is in the authorizations tab for trips, you can now quick add items and you can generate an invoice. So if you're kind of coming into Tern for the first time or just as a part of your regular workflow, and what you really want to do is create a trip and get authorizations via an invoice, you can actually just jump right to that tab. We even give you a nice little like panel for it in the overview, and quick add an item right from there, generate an invoice, send it over for authorization. So again, just like trying to streamline a lot of those core flows that we know people have when they first come into Tern.
When I saw
So
the
cool.
demo of the authorization stuff, I'd forgotten that we designed it. It was like a few months ago because the project kind of shifted, and I was like, oh, whoever did that, like that's so smart. And then it's like, wait, I designed this like months ago, and I just completely forgotten. But yeah, I'm really excited about, like, again, we talk about this sometimes as like no dead ends on the design side, of just making sure when you land somewhere, like there is an obvious next step thing to do that makes sense, like based on not like what we want you to do, but rather like what do we think the mindset is? What do we think you're trying to accomplish when you come there? And that's the perfect example. Like you said, you're like, oh, I want to get authorization. How do I do that? Ideally, don't like go back over to the itinerary. It's like just right here. What do I do? Add a thing, get it ready, boom, and send it off. So really excited.
Also, you moved on way too quickly from the fact that you just like totally bragged of like, who's that brilliant designer? Oh, it's me.
Yeah, like right. There's can only be two people, but like, wow, I did a great job. I did love that.
Sometimes you gotta just pat yourself on the back. You acknowledge when you do something smart. It's great.
I do think it is so cool. Like it's actually been surprising, even as like you demo like and kind of show people for the first time the product. You like create a new trip, and historically you sort of like I talk through every section. I'm like, okay, like here's and with these new like empty states on the top of the trip, it sort of just says like here's everything you can do on the trip. Like where do you want to start? And it actually just makes it so much easier, even in the like demo process for people to wrap their head. So it's really exciting. That no dead ends concept I think is really powerful. So let us know what you think. I know it was kind of funny. Like I think we expected these features to really be exciting for maybe not to make an impact for people who are coming into the product for the first time. But it was kind of fun to see within minutes, I think, of this going live, somebody posting in the Facebook group being like, oh my gosh, like this is like, I love this. Like, and I think we maybe talked about this once, like all these things like, can like this stay forever? Like, I always want this to be here. And it's like, it's just surprising and it's cool. But we also, so let us know what you think of those empty states. If there's other areas like that, right, that you see that you're like, have ideas, obviously let us know in the comments, shoot us an email. But we also made some updates on the form side of things. And Brad, I think you're going to talk about the continued work that we're doing there.
Yeah, so we've had a series of work on forms, really with the goal of thinking about how do you collect information about a group of travelers in the most streamlined way. The feedback we've gotten around that in the past is like, wait, it's so weird that I have to put in an email address for my kid when I'm like filling out this form. It's like they don't. What do I do? Do I put my own in? What happens there? Do I really have to like type this at like my address 10 times? Well, hopefully not 10 times if you're all living in the same house, but you get the point. There's like duplicate information or information that like maybe makes sense for the primary traveler that doesn't make sense for the rest of them. So the progress we made there this week is, at least if you fill out a form for multiple travelers, either a trip request form or just a contact form that allows for multiple travelers to be added there. If you don't add email addresses for anyone other than the primary traveler, we at least still know on our side that those contacts are related to that primary traveler, so that if you need to go make updates later, like if that primary traveler fills out a new trip later, or like a new form later, and they put in at least their email address, but not the rest of the contacts, we can still match them, and we're not like creating bajillion duplicate contacts, because previously our kind of deduplicating logic was like, oh, don't create a new contact if we already have one with the same name and email address. Well, we know for children, you want to be able to do this without having an email address. So we needed some other way to know that we should like update a specific contact. And we do that now with relationships. I think that was a really clunky way to explain this, but Molly, anything there to provide more clarity about like what exactly the change is here?
Yeah, and I actually think this is one that we kind of have this master plan that will come to fruition that we can like do an end-to-end demo next week, and it will just like, I think, be everything that advisors are looking for. This is one piece of it that I think will make things even better in the meantime, but I think it'll become even more apparent, like, holy crap, things are so much better next week when we demo the end-to-end of like, you only require the email address of the primary traveler, the others are optional, and we can like show you the demo of like how you'd fill it out as a traveler and how it all comes together. So I think you explained it well, and I think it'll be even even more clear and powerful next week when we have all those little pieces in there.
Okay, cool. And then one other thing on forums before we move on, we also added a new contact element you can collect in forms. Again, if it's a trip request form or a contact form, you can now collect a contact's gender as part of the form. So previously that was only something like you as an advisor could edit directly on their contact profile. Now you can let them fill it out at any time. And we did expand the list of genders there too. We previously just had male, female, and not specified or something. And now we also added non-binary and other, which was a request from folks just making sure that they could understand the gender that they're like all their clients identify with, and make sure we had a more comprehensive list. So really excited about that. And yeah, if there's more types of fields that you want your clients to be able to set as part of forms, definitely let us know, because we're getting in this rhythm now of knowing kind of how to add more of these things into the forms framework.
It is, it's really cool too. Like I was going through sort of our users conference registration flow, and it's kind of actually fun. Like a lot of these things that we had like custom fields and workarounds for, like have now just been so much, like they've been fixed, right? Like we were collecting that via manual field. And so it will be fun next week. Next week's shaping up to be a hype podcast. I mean, like we got the forms demo end to end that we'll bring to life there, and some other things. So again, like, subscribe, make sure that you tune in next week for that.
Did Grace
really pushing it here. Really pushing it here, just trying to get those numbers. Speaking of a topic that we talk a lot about, editor, Molly, we're almost there. We're not quite there, but we're almost there. I think we'll still hit the end of July for most of it. How are we thinking about it?
I mean, speaking of another topic that's going to be great next week, our editor for trips and activities, the new editor is live in beta for our kind of closed beta on the editor. We really appreciate all of the work that beta testers put in, not only like kind of being guinea pigs on some of these new features, but like really taking the time to send us lots of feedback. I think it's actually gone very smoothly. There's no like major issues or like things that we've had to jump on and roll back, but they have identified some edge cases that we missed, things like copy and pasting and nested bullet points, and a few other areas that we want to make sure we're addressing and making fully polished before we roll it out to everybody. So early next week, we plan to launch the new editor to all travel advisors, and on the podcast, we can talk about how that went. And then the editor for email and messaging, which is the last piece, is very well underway. If I had to guess, I doubt it will launch to everybody next week. I think it'll kind of depend on how quickly we can get through it, and then any beta feedback that comes out of it. It's another one that's fairly complex with a lot of like new functionality we're building around like variables and that sort of thing. So more to come. I'm guessing like the podcast following we'll be able to talk about it in more depth.
Wow. This is gonna be a big one. Like I think that the trip editor, right, is probably one of the most heavily used editor experience. So saving the best for almost last. But yeah, we've talked about this so many times, so we won't rehash it, right? But this is one of those cases where like we're very intentionally going slow and making sure that it's like going well, and that it's as smooth as this kind of transition possibly can. Ideally, you just like start using the app one day and you're like, oh, this editor's different, and like you're just happy about that, and all the back end migration work and conversion work and everything that had to kind of go into that is sort of abstracted. And I'll echo what Molly said in terms of like the beta testers are the ones that are finding all these little things where like it like wasn't perfect, right? And like helping surface that, because even though we've literally compared thousands of different permutations, there are infinite permutations in how you can configure the text editor. So that'll be huge. Exciting week next week. I'm like already hyped for it. But we're now this is sort of all like maybe a little bit of the kind of quality of life, but we're definitely in now the quality of life section of the podcast. And Brad, as usual, is going to kick us off with some exciting housekeeping, you could say.
Sure, some housekeeping.
Or shed cleaning.
Love it. One of the bigger quality of life improvements we shipped this week is now you can edit the tags that you have for trips and contacts in your settings. And honestly, like personally, I was kind of skeptical of this feature, because it's just like, who cares if you have tags taken out that are like you're not using them. Is it really bothering you? Well, one thing we've learned about advisors is that you like to be very organized and you like the mess to go away. And yeah, this has been a sleeper hit with the people. But now within your business settings, you can go and look at every tag you've ever created in Tern, see how many contacts and trips or workflows it's applied to. You can delete things you don't want to have around anymore. You can update them if you made a typo and you've been living with it for a while just because you don't want to like have to create a new tag. So just another way to like make sure that your content is organized. You're able to kind of optimize those things there. It is kind of cool. Like maybe just to share a little bit behind the scenes here on this feature. This was not something we had on our roadmap. I think Andrew, one of our engineers, maybe I don't know if he was personally planning something. He was just annoyed by this or like saw this somewhere. But he actually kind of looked at it and was like, this seems like something that'd be fun to throw at some of these like AI engineering tools we've been playing around with. Like it seems kind of lower risk and like scoped enough that like it doesn't need Brad or Molly or anyone on the product design side to like jump in and tell me what to do or like to do a bunch of planning. Like let's just see what this AI tool can come up with. And I would say it got us like 80% of the way there with very, very little work. And it went from something abstract to like, what would it be like to let advisors manage their tags? So like, here's a draft of this. Like, could we ship this? And if not, like, are there small changes we can make to like get it ready to ship that wouldn't require us to like, change a bunch of things around the roadmap? And it's kind of the first of, I think, what will be many projects like this where we're cutting out a lot of kind of like the pre-work and planning and all the overhead to just be like, let's start with a draft and then decide from there whether it's worth kind of like moving forward with that. Anything to add there, Molly? I know like you've been thinking a lot about this too.
Just that I think it will lead to some more surprise features that we maybe not like talking about proactively, but we can now just like slot in without a lot of planning. So we've got some others in store that will be fun to surprise people with.
That was I like that. Well, we were discussing like, should we talk about these things? We're like, no, let's keep it a surprise. And someone will be like, I don't know, there might be some surprises. It's like funny, but we'll just leave it there. Moving on. So we also have some surprises coming. A lot of learnings coming from just sort of how to do AI. We actually one of the panels I'm more excited for about the users conference is this like sort of AI panel. We're talking about the AI of like in travel. And part of this is like we're also going to be talking about like how have we been using it to level up our efficiency internally. So that'll be really fun. And we'll have more stories like this to share and some kind of practical tips from other travel advisors and how they're using it. So it's a topic we care about both in the product, but also in like how do we operationalize our business, like we said. But that's not the only thing that we did to kind of improve the just like day-to-day experience in the app. What else is going on, Brad?
Yeah, so I think this is now maybe the fifth time that I've said we've made confirmation numbers clickable so that you can copy them easier in another place throughout the product. This time on payout statements. So if I think the use case is more like you're looking at a payout and you're like wanting to reference like what is this thing quick, like either before or after you paid one of your agents. So now that's also there within the table. You can just click the confirmation number; it'll automatically copy it. So nice little quality of life improvement there. And then I think Molly's got the next one on the list.
I do, and I actually Audible added one that I completely forgot about. So yeah, as many of you know, we have folders in most library types already. But we kind of had 3 types that we hadn't completed yet that were slightly lower priority just in terms of like the volume of total of these like library item types being created. So automation templates, just like overall across advisors, there's less of them, itinerary templates and workflows. So we just actually finished automation template folders, which is great. So if you have like a system that you're using, you can now go and set those up for automation templates. The next one in progress is itinerary template folders, and then workflows will be the final one. So like we kind of slowed down a little bit on some of the momentum there, but we are planning on adding them to those other library types before we fully move on. So that's really exciting. And then the other thing that you'll start to see, what we call like more incremental progress on over the coming months really is mobile web improvements for advisors. And what I mean there is like when you're using Tern on the go, so like on your iPad, on your phone, which we know happens a lot because you're traveling a lot as travel advisors. Today, most of the pages in Turn don't react well. Like when you actually are using it on a smaller screen size, it's like kind of hard and clunky to use. And so what our goal is that we're actually making progress every week to identifying like what are some of the bigger reasons that's happening and cutting those things. So like killing space that's unnecessary, kind of reordering and like stacking things where we can. And it's another one that we're actually doing some like pretty cool stuff with AI around, where our designer Ursula is actually going to be using an AI tool to recommend a lot of these changes and actually like prototype a lot of these changes instead of having to like recreate the entire product in our design tool and then like do all the stuff there. And then engineering has to like create cards to like break down the work and And instead we're trying to experiment with a way of streamlining that. So that's really exciting for a number of reasons, but you should like basically every single week see momentum in that area of just like making Turn more responsive and easier to use on smaller screen sizes.
So cool. That's gonna, yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It continues to blow my mind. I mean, it makes total sense, I guess, when you think about it. But like the number of people that run their business from an iPad is
Mhm.
just like incredible. Like, and I guess like you're always on the road. It's easy to just grab and go. And like, but so these improvements both on iPads, even smaller screens, just gonna be such a big unlock. And some of the ways that we're doing it are really really exciting. Um,
Oh, I forgot to even say what the update was this week. That is part of that progress. So it's a small one this week, but basically the big like left navigation bar, when you're editing activities, it like even if you collapse it, it takes up a chunk of space that is just like unnecessary when you're on really small screen sizes. So we just like fully get rid of that navigation bar on the left when you're in edit mode for activities. That's it.
No, no, like the space, right? I mean, like I think that's the biggest. It's like every pixel matters on these small screens, and thinking about like how do you save it, how do you free it up is really cool. So those are the quality of life updates. You know, got a lot happening, right? As always, it might be summer, but we're not slowing down, and that brings us to what's going on next week. So, Brad, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, so the main project my squad, my set of engineers, and are going to be working on next week is starting to split out. Maybe I'll describe it this way. It's just like improving the way we handle payment schedules and payments. What we've heard from a lot of folks today is once you've like, if you like collect a payment, you're like, oh, I'm going to get a deposit and then a final balance. And then you're like, oh, wait, I want to split it, like change to installments. Doing that today is very clunky. You have to like manually basically like write some stuff down on a piece of paper, change it and go like re-enter what's already been paid and make sure all that looks good. So we're going to make some big improvements there so that like the payments that have been made are kind of separate from the actual payment schedule, what's expected, so that you can change details on the payment schedule without impacting any of the like actual payments that you've been tracking as made. We have a little prototype of this. It feels like such a better experience. I don't know, it might not ship next week just because we have like there's a lot of like complexity there we need to dig through, but that's what we're starting to work through on the engineering side that I'm really excited about.
I think this is one, and we haven't even spent a lot of time talking about this in particular in previous podcasts, but I think this is going to be one that people just lose their, like, I think they're going to be so excited. Like, 'cause it's just like, there's so many things that are just clunky about it today that create so much pain because you're doing this interacting with your clients and getting authorization and trying to make these bookings in a time sensitive way. And I think it's going to be huge.
I,
Kind of
I
with
was
it.
I was I was playing with this like prototype this morning that Brad kind of shared over, and I was like, I literally pinged. I was like, this is very exciting. Like it finds the right balance of like persistence with like also the kind of compliance that we care a lot about, but also like better supporting the realities of like fluctuating prices and costs and like so that'll be that'll be really fun. And like Brad said, like this is one that we would also expect. The complexity is in a number of areas. One is like building the feature, but it's also data model shift most likely. And anytime you're like changing the data model for something as important as like authorizations and payments and expected like you got to be really thoughtful. And so it may not be a next week thing, but we are kicking off that work, and it's going to be coming as a part of this like you sort of refreshed and improved thinking on what should payments look like in turn. So really excited about that. Molly, what else is on your list for next week?
Well, I think Brad has maybe one more thing around forms.
Yeah, we're doing more
Oh,
form stuff. We just, like Molly mentioned, like next week we should actually be able to show kind of this full flow around improvements we've been making to, again, forms that allow you to kind of differentiate what information you need from a primary traveler from the rest of the travelers on the trip and make sure everything's updated correctly. So more to come there, and we'll probably do a demo next week.
Yeah, and after that work is done, basically my team is like taking over the forms baton for a little while. So we're actually going to be focused on form responses and making sure that you can access those responses in the places that are more intuitive for your workflows, which I think is going to be so hype. So we're starting with contacts, where there's going to be a new forms tab within your contacts, and any forms related to that contact will automatically be stored there. You don't have to take any action to make that happen. It will be applied retroactively too, which will be really cool. And then there'll be another set of improvements coming soon to let you tag responses with a trip, so you can just store it on the trip proactively, and to automatically, to make it easier to insert specific form links into messaging, and then to automatically store responses on the trip if you send out the message from that trip. So we'll kind of give more detail on exactly what that means and how it will work, but the end result will just be form responses at your fingertips where you need them, which is associated with the trip and associated with the contact.
I personally am going to miss having to go to library forms responses to find that, but I guess people want it, so we'll do it. I guess we'll do it. Just feedback-driven culture here. That's very exciting. Anything else before I move on? Well, I don't want to cut you short like I cut Brad short there.
I mean, all the talk about dead ends, I also think I need a haircut. So
Important life update.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, it is like that means probably leaving the house. So I mean, that is like a big it's a big thing. So okay, we'll love that for you. Next week is gonna be just another great week. I'm like, I realize that we do this section every week. I'm like all prepared to ask you guys what you're doing, and I'm like, what am I doing next week? I think it's just like a lot more of this like sort of planning, a lot more of this like kind of taking some of the pushes and things on the board, like working with the leadership team to really say like, okay, what if any changes are we making to the roadmap? Like there's a ton of work. We're like in overdrive right now for users conference and event planning and all the things that we kind of have. We have a very busy travel fall planned in terms of events, obviously hosting our own events. So it's just kind of a lot of making sure that's moving forward. So it should be another really good week from that perspective. And just the most exciting part is all these cool things that'll be shipping over the next couple of weeks. So so that wraps up our episode for this week. Thank you again for joining. I'm not going to remind you to subscribe or like this again because I think I've exhausted that. And so we'll just move right into the exit. Thank you for joining in. We appreciate the time that you spend with us. We love your feedback. Like I said, we're building this for you every single week based on your feedback. And it is such a privilege and exciting time to be doing that. So Brad, Molly, thank you. It's always good catching up on Friday. Brad, enjoy Maine. Molly, we didn't talk about what you're doing this weekend. Maybe getting a haircut. Enjoy that. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah.
Bye.